Welcome everyone to the Voice of Terminus show, and look who's back. So, round of applause. Joshua's back. Say hello, Josh.
Hey guys.
Now we have Lexa with us, as usual. He never lets me down. Say hello, Lex.
Sorry, you guys can't get rid of me yet.
And we have
under contract.
And we have Cheyenne with us, one of our mods. Quick info. Today's topic is a discussion on the mechanics of the UI, the user interface, more on the perspective of quality of life mechanics, utilities that will help us as players within the UI, and of course in general, UI discussion. Quick information: Zathris is one of our mods and will answer any generalized questions. Shai will be here today to view chat and grab questions from there for us to answer at the end of the show. So just type your questions in chat and make sure you at Frogzor so she picks it up and can catch it. Questions or thoughts or whatever, she'll basically grab some stuff and bring it in. And we start the show off today with a disclaimer. We are not paid by VR. We do not work for VR. We are not in any way associated with them. We're here first and foremost to promote the game, get people interested in Pantheon Rise of the Fallen, and secondly to entertain the community while we wait on the testing stages to kick in, and to help discuss all the cool ideas that the community have put together, and to help VR maybe pick up on some of these cool ideas that would maybe work for the game. So that's what we're doing, and that's a disclaimer for now. So let's go and kick it off with the UI. I was actually trying to look for the original stance on the UI from Pantheon's view, but I can kind of remember it because I couldn't find it right away in the FAQ. There was questions asked if the UI will be modifiable, and the general answer was yes. You can modify the UI within its boundaries set forth by VR. There will, however, be no third-party customizations. They will not support that, is I think what they lastly said on the matter. So you will be able to fully, or to the most part, customize the UI however you want, position things wherever you want. And what other features additionally come in, and we'll talk about that in a bit while we go through the UI discussion. Lexa prepared, or sent me some pictures my way for us to talk about the evolution of the UI. So before we go into all of that, I'd like to get your thoughts, guys, starting with you, Lex. When you think about the UI, the user interface, what's your initial thoughts? What's your first thoughts on this, and how would you like to kind of see the UI for Pantheon?
Well, for me, I understand that also there's apparently some buffering going on. That could be on Twitch, guys. Just hang tight, deal with them. But my view on UIs is that they have to be able to cater to a lot of different players. You got to cater to the people who love all the information that you could possibly get, as well as people that are more like myself. They want a minimalistic UI. Your UIs have to feel very, very responsive. They have to look sleek, What I kind of want from Pantheon's UI is the ability to add or remove the information that I want to see. I want to be able to manipulate where the positions of certain things are. I would like the option to possibly remove or add the decorations around certain windows, perhaps. It's all, my desires are based on the customizability of it all. But my number one thing that I want to see is a responsive UI. Like the minute I click that button, I want to feel like I just clicked that button and it's already doing something. Yeah, that's really about it. Long-winded speech on nothing, basically.
What about you, Josh?
Basically on the same lines as Lexa. For me, I'm very much a minimalist as well. I hate a cluttered UI that takes up half the screen. I love seeing the landscapes around me and not have to worry about the 3 or 4 button bars clouding up the area. So yeah, something that at least is customizable. If you could actually maybe have 3 or 4 maybe different types of minimal graphical UIs based on race, that's also pretty cool. But not necessary, because if you're going to be moving things around, that may be a problem. But definitely something that is also, when you click something, it actually happens, and you can see the timers, etc.
Yeah, for me, it's, I'm kind of all, I think we're all on the same fence. As little clatter on the screen as possible. I would like to have a more instinctive, dynamic UI, to be honest. I must admit, in EverQuest, my UI was full. I had, all the spell bars open. I had multiple chat windows open for the simple reason that I want to be able to see what is going on in my guild chat, my group chat, my general chat all at once. I don't want to have to go and, scroll through multiple chat windows. But there's ways of doing this, and that's where I'll get into the dynamic portion of this discussion later on. Because even though I want to be, I need to know everything that's going on, and I need to have my spells all available to me. There's smart ways of doing this through dynamic UI building, meaning, having stuff on the side that you can basically just hover over and pull it in. Like your touchscreen on your mobile phone, you just swipe, and then boom, that comes into the screen. Boom, you move it back out, it disappears for the time being if you don't need it. So things like that, and obviously, when I do click a button, something actually happens and doesn't, take 15, 20, 30 seconds for it to appear, or for it to actually load up all the elements inside of that. And so we're kind of all on the same fence. So let's go and kick it off with some of these images, Lex, and Lex will do all the talking for this now.
Just really, really quick here. We're having some serious issues here. Constant buffering on Twitch and YouTube. I'm seeing. It looks like Mixer is frozen.
Well, it's not on my end.
Okay, just saying. There might be an issue with the North American node.
I've dropped absolutely no frames. Frames are constant at 30.
Definitely buffering on my side. Yeah.
I do not. I cannot. I'm going to have a look at the settings again real quick. Nope, everything's fine on this end. So you guys might have to catch this later on in a replay or whatever. Anyway, so let's carry on. Sorry folks, we can't do anything about the buffering. It looks perfectly fine on my end. No issues there. So, Lex, I'm going to bring up the first screenshot, and you can tell everybody a bit about it.
I need to find where mine were. I don't remember where I put them. Thought I had them on my desktop. Oh, here they are. Perfect. Okay, so your first one here is basically a MUD with a graphical user interface, or GUI. UI for short. You can see everything's very basic, very pixely, like 8-bit blocks, kind of like you'd see in Minecraft. Nothing to really write home about, but considering where this whole kind of adventure started was straight text, it's still a massive jump forward.
Okay.
The second one, I don't know if you want to tell me when you move or whatever, but
yeah, I can move to the second one now.
Yeah, the second one, a lot of people are going to be familiar with. That's the original EverQuest user interface. It was fine for what it was, because it was basically one step further past a MUD where you actually have a 3D world to run around. But the user interface was still in its infancy, to where no one really knew what worked. No one knew what didn't work. If you were to play EverQuest like this today, I don't think many people could deal with it. It's too cluttered. You don't have enough viewing space. There's so much just stuff everywhere. A lot of dead space between elements because of the decorations and such. But still, again, a massive leap forward.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next one is where you see EverQuest now, where we have like transparent windows. You have resizable windows, movable windows, closable windows. It's basically when games finally decided that not everyone enjoys the same user interface, so let's let them make it the way they want. And from that point forward, UIs more became a case of what works for you versus what's right, what's wrong. Even, I think the only games that really don't have a customizable UI nowadays are just single-player games.
Mm-hmm.
But as we go forward to these screenshots, you can do now or later, we're going to see a lot of different varying designs or takes on the UI system. Some are prettier than others. Some go for this like hyper-informative kind of layout, which are usually very customized with third-party add-ons and such. Right down to this ultra-minimalistic Elder Scrolls Online, where it's you see the world, you see your character, and then you got your bar of 5 abilities. Kind of thing. And with each of these different UIs, they're not wrong. I mean, they're just better for the person using it.
Shall I just jump through them, shall I? Or
you can go through it at a regular pace or whatnot. Like, I know there's a lot of people out there right now that, they really like to see all the information possible. And I used to be like that. For me, personally, like I said, I'm a minimalistic UI kind of guy now because it helps me get immersed in the game. Less data, more playing. There are a lot of do's and don'ts when it comes down to UIs. And you'll see this in a lot of in Korean games, just because it's so prominent.
we're having issues hearing you a minute.
You have stuff like, daily event, things going crazy.
Yeah, frozen for me.
Yeah, you just crashed completely a minute ago. But I'm having no drop frames or anything like that, so we'll just carry on and hopefully we'll be fine.
Yeah, we'll see. But yeah, when we first kind of came up with this topic, there's a lot of ways you can approach it. What Joshua, which doesn't work for Frogzor. I mean, it's such a perspective and per person kind of thing that you can really do is look at what are the things that UIs need to have nowadays. I mean, like, for instance, your inventory. You need a way to sort that thing, right? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, would you guys be fine in Pantheon if you couldn't sort your bags? Or are you fine just having chaos?
No, I definitely. There's no way in today's times that you should be able to still not have a button that auto arranges your bags for you. I think it's frustrating. I think for any of us, especially with the bag sizes that they seem to have, and the slots they seem to have, that you cannot auto arrange by choice of weapon, maybe by crafting materials, etc. So definitely, there's no reason why they shouldn't have something like that in my mind.
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of those little features that you kind of have to have them.
Yeah.
If a developer feels that it's useful or not. Sorting being one for one easy example.
I've been, going through the forums and, listening to what, and reading what the community have been talking about, and even on our Discord server, and, and whatnot. And, there's been so many discussions on, the group options, the guild options, even the discussion we had when we were talking about the housing option with the instancing, semi-instance, and, locked out. These are all things within the UI that should be at our disposal regardless. Group options, for instance, how are you going to handle loot? A major discussion going on in the forums how loot should be handled. At the end of the day, it should be up to the group leader, the person who opens up the group, discusses it with the group what they want to go for, and have all the options available to him. So if he wants to have Need Before Greed or Legendary Plus or restricted to certain races or to certain classes and whatnot, then all these options should be available to us as a click.
Yes,
as a click.
They need to be presented in a simple way so that it doesn't feel cluttered or slapped in there.
Yeah.
I mean, as a person who's going to be running a lot of groups, I personally love using Need for Greed because everyone that's in my group understands what that really means. But I like to set it to a certain point. Like, I'll use WoW's color code system. I think it was white, green, blue, purple, I think. So in my case, I would set that to purple, meaning, you can just get whatever until it's purple, and then you have to roll. Because unless it's purple, it's not worth my time, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So that's a little bit of customization that I enjoy having for my loot UI. It's being able to say the threshold upon which people do use the Need for Greed system.
But adding to that, though, let's say, for instance, you have the option for purple. You should be able to add multiple options, though. For instance, like, purple and class related or class restricted.
Yes.
So only, so you can choose for, if it's a tank item, for instance, that only the tanks can loot on this. And if it's purple above, it's Need Before Greed and so forth and so forth. So multiple options available to us that we can actually unify, that we can use as multiple options, not just, it's either going to be Need Before Greed, or it's going to be Legendary Plus, or it's going to be this, or it's going to be that, round robin and whatnot. It should, we should have all the options at our disposal, and to be able to mix and match, obviously within the sense of it making sense, how we want it to be.
Right. Options are going to be the spice of life, but like I already said before, it's a matter of presenting these options in the UI simply and without a lot of clutter. Because when you see games like Blade for Soul or Terra, and you go to like the options window, just as an example, there is so much stuff in there that you don't have any idea. You get to the point where you're just tired of reading. So there's got to be a way that you can merge similar options together. You can add tabs. You can put different windows for them, whatever. But the options need to be there, and they need to be there in a non-complicated fashion.
Oh, go ahead. That's one thing, though, that I did love about Terra's UI. It was fully customizable. I could resize any window individually, or scale it down 100%. I could turn off certain features, this, that, and the other. Those are the kind of options that, I think should be available to us. If you're going to give us customization, you don't want third-party options in it, then let us fully customize the UI to how we see fit. If I want to have it really tiny so I can pick up more of the scenery, that should be my option. I shouldn't be restricted to certain size restrictions, this, that, and the other. And that's one thing that Terra did fantastically. The options were unbeatable. You could break everything down, resize it how you want, so you could have a huge window showing your health, because I was blind back in the day before I got these. And I couldn't really see my health and everything, so I had that window a bit larger. I had the chat window a bit larger, but therefore I had maybe my bags a bit smaller, and so forth. And those are, these are quality of life options.
Right.
They don't break or hurt the game. They don't give anybody an advantage. You know, there's no beating people to the punch. It's quality of life, pure quality of life options.
Now, like I'm seeing a lot of chat about like the sorting method. You know, some people don't even like it. So that needs to be addressed by adding the options that people would want,
Correct.
which is the forums where you would actually suggest or request that. So like for me, sometimes I want to sort things by quality. Sometimes I want to sort them by type. Sometimes I want to sort them by category. I want my potions first and then my armors. You know, there's a lot of ways that you can do something simple like sorting.
I want to sell all the trash items.
Right.
Any level below green, for instance, I want to sell to the vendor automatically.
Yeah, or sort by usable. So anything I can use is first, what I can't use is second.
Or basically, you know, say, you know, from the items that drop within the world, you want them to be assigned to a certain bag. So you don't have to worry about, you know, going through it afterwards. And this is kind of something that they brought into EverQuest 2 later in, you know, around the level 100s. They brought out the whole complete customizable interface for the bags, and I thought it was great. Did it work 100%? No, there were a lot of bugs in it still. It wasn't working 100% as it was meant to, but the options were there, they were given. Now, you don't have to use them. You know, the old schoolers that do not want to use that, you know, it's not something that will be forced upon you, but these options should be available for those that do want to use it.
Right. And I mean, like, another great feature that I never used to like back in the day, but I'm actually a huge fan of now, is sell all like trash items.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we know there's probably going to be a decent amount of trash items, and a trash item would be classified as just vendor fodder, something that the only use of it is to sell. I never used to like it because sometimes I wanted to hold on to some trash items for giving away to people because they were just trash items that sold really, really well. But nowadays, I mean, I look every time I go to like a vendor, I look for that one little button that's sell all trash or sell all gray items or whatnot. I freaking love that option now. I never used to.
In Landmark, for instance, I don't know, not many might have played it, a few might have. The original Landmark, when it came out, and I think up to when it went into beta stage, the UI was fantastic. All the way up to beta before they went into the release stage. There was hardly anything on the screen. You had like 3 buttons at the top, 3 round circles, for instance. This is where I'm getting into the dynamics of the UI. You had your guild window, your friends window, your chat, your messages, you know, your mail, and instead of them being open constantly, it was a really small, tiny round button, and it would blink when something was updated in there. Those are the kind of things that I, you know, would love to see happen in a modern UI. Is instead of having all my windows around, my chat window down there, my spell bars there, this there, things that I can push to the side, off the screen technically, and when something happens, if I get a new tell, or somebody writes something in chat and I, you know, select that I want to be informed if they're saying something in general chat, for instance, it would automatically blink up saying, hey, there's new messages here for you in your chat window. Those are the kind of things that I think would revolutionize the interface, because having all this bloated up with all kinds of windows because whatever, you're losing a lot of the game, especially a game like Pantheon. I mean, we've seen the screenshots, we've seen the streams, we've seen where they're going. Even at this stage, the game is looking fantastic. Now, when they start adding in all the lighting animations and the shadow effects and all the items, decoration and stuff into that game, I will want to see as much of the game on my screen instead of my UI. You know, standard stuff like your spell window, your spells, that's a given. You know, your spells have to be available to you. Your chat window, or your group window, I mean, should be available to you, but it should be something that you can hide and open as you wish. And, you know, minimize your health bar and stuff like that. Those are the things that should happen or should be available to us in a modern game.
Well, Well, for me, I think I want to take it a step further than that. I want to be able to, at the click of a button, change my UI from a normal adventuring UI to a raid UI. So I don't have to swap out things, etc., for the raid boss, the detrimentals on the screen while I'm raiding, that type of thing. And find them and put them neatly into a certain area. I should have that set up as a default somewhere, as a button, where I just have to click on it and bang, it pops up when I want to raid, when I want to adventure, when I want to craft my stuff. So the UI should also be global in the sense that you should be able to
switch through different stages,
UIs. Yeah, of your adventuring, of your game.
Yeah, switch for your instancing of the UI. You should be able to instance it, period.
I think that is a very good idea, one that definitely should be pursued, because as a tank and a guy who likes to do a lot of grouping, a lot of raiding, and I solo when I don't have anything else to do. I don't want the same setup for my raid situation versus my group situation. In a group where I'm the only tank, I tend to try to keep a much closer eye on my teammates. Therefore, maybe I want my party window to be larger, or I want it to be more centered on my screen. But if I'm raiding and I'm the main tank, it's probably not my job to pick up this ad. There's off tanks for that, or there's CC for that. So the group's probably not such an important aspect of my gameplay at this time. And I don't want to have to constantly move stuff around. And I can just go click. I want my raid UI. Just save my layout.
Definitely, especially
I like that very much.
I mean, it's the same with the chat window. There has to be a lot more options to the chat features to us. Be able to create as many tab windows as you want, to adjust the size of the text however you want, to make it as small the window as you want. Do not restrict it to a fixed formula. Let the people be able to modify that to how they please. If I want to have my chat window going vertical, then that's my choice. If I want my chat to go horizontal, that's my choice.
The only thing I'll add to that is, if you're making it super, super small, never make it smaller than the close button.
Yes.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I'm be the guy shaking my monitor going, just close it.
A modern UI should be smart. It should be a smart, that's the word we're going to be using, smart UI. Remember that. We have now got the term smart UI. We want a smart UI. It's not going to destroy anybody's gameplay. It's going to give everybody a quality of life. Everybody, with all their different kinds of play styles and ways they want to set up their windows, the opportunity to do it how they want. And that would eradicate the use or the need for third party. So
I think the best way to describe it is to say, we want a smart UI that can help me tailor my experience.
Correct.
So, we know there's going to be floating numbers, they said, like how I think it became popular in World of Warcraft, where you hit and the number would float around or whatever, pops to the side. I do believe in the second stream they mentioned that.
Yep.
But what if, for some reason, I want mine in a box up in the corner, of just my hits, maybe I want to do whatever. I want to be able to take those, turn that off, and put it on a box. But then I want, say Yarnella doesn't like that. He wants the floating. He can close that window and he can make the little floaty numbers. I'll consider it a win when we can tailor our experiences per player.
Or even...
Go ahead.
Or even add another feature to it. So you got the box in your corner, I've got the floaties on mine, and Josh here has got it set to text chat only.
Yeah.
Stuff like that, where you take the individual experiences and give people more than just one option. Not just turn it off, hide it. Give them alternatives. You don't like it like this, you can then pop it up into a window, or into have it into a chat feature, or this or that. Give people multiple options, and do not, for the love of God,
Now, Svarty has sparked something interesting here. Like Svarty just said, save UI, load it whenever you want. You can kind of eliminate the need for third-party like specialized UIs. You add the options, but allow them to export like their layout file, and then you could share that with another player, and they load it up and it just puts the windows where they want, uses the same colors, whatever, however you want. And it's kind of the same thing without requiring you to expose basically your systems to a third-party developer.
Yeah. Exactly.
Definitely. Just the save option, the load option, colors as well. Let
I'm big on chat colors.
Let people modify the colors however they want. If I want my out of combat chat or out of character chat or OC to be blue, then it's going to be blue. And if I want my guild chat, instead of it being green, I want it to be red. And if I want my raid chat to be yellow, then I make it yellow. Some of these games did offer these options to some point, but these are things that should be in there. But I'm talking about the UI as well. You have your standard UI, and if it's done dynamically, you can have it like a kind of see-through coloring. So I can go in there and say, right, I scale, you start off with black or whatever, and you go through, and I turn my UI all of a sudden into green, into red, into yellow. So everything I have now, all my windows are yellow or green or blue.
Yeah, it could be a background color, maybe a foreground color for the actual text itself. It would also be nice to have some stuff like additional textures to put on stuff like health bars. Not saying in the game like you see above your opponent's head, not that. I'm talking like in the actual UI to see your own hit points. Because sometimes I look at something and it just doesn't click. Having the extra texture really helps me at a glance differentiate things. I don't know, maybe I'm the only one, but it does help me if I have like my resource bar, my mana, my stamina, whatever, to be like just a flat color, and then my hit points will have like a wave or something or a gradient. That personally helps me. I don't have the greatest I don't see colors super well. My eyes aren't the greatest. They're actually getting worse day by day. So every little bit that I can get really helps me at least feel like I can still be effective.
Yeah. Definitely.
I agree. I think that different colors. I think, as you said, smart is the word for it. I think that total customization at the end of the day for what you want when your experience is needed, and that can only be effective when they build it from the start. So I hope they have thought about this.
Now, what I wanted to say about, somebody's already mentioned this in chat already, hotbars, for instance. Now, in EverQuest 2, I had all the hotbars open, all of them, all 12. They were open, and they were used. Honest to God, they were used. 30 spells and whatnots, and I had my group spells in one hotbar, my single player spells in the other hotbar, my single damage spells in one, my group damage spells in the other, my heals in one, my buffs for short-term buffs in the other, my little helper spells like escape or FD or this or that was in another bar. So I basically had I basically used it completely. Now, if we have something similar where we have multiple spells at use, don't limit the hotbars. Let it be an option. If I want to have a second hotbar on my screen, or a third, or a fourth, or a fifth, let that be the player's choice. And let him do it how he wants. Also, they have to be modifiable as well. I used to, make some really small, then I used to make some go long, make some go horizontal, so I have them on the sides, and these are options that should be available to us. You can have the standard UI, and then basically just let us go crazy with it.
But why were there 10 hotbars in EQ2? Why? Because you could never really have something where you could have a raid setting or a crafting setting, because you needed all of those things. Otherwise, if you get rid of it, you wouldn't know where to find it. again,
Right.
type of thing.
So adding those features that Josh mentioned earlier on about having 3 random setups on a click available to us. So I've got my group set up, my raid set up, my crafting set up, would eliminate the use for me to use 12 hotbars, because then I would know exactly, boom, boom, boom. If I'm crafting, I want these spells to be shown. If I'm doing grouping, I need these spells available to me. If I'm doing raiding, I need this layout for me.
Right.
Exactly.
And see, when I actually lay out my hotbars and such, I do everything almost exactly the same. Like my charge, if the warrior has a charge, it's always number 4. If it's not charged, then it's a taunt. And I kind of go by touch, and I always have, I don't know, I guess you call me more of a keyboard cowboy than a UI clicker. It's just the way I've always been. So the ability to swap between like my hotbars for raid and grouping is going to save me so much time. Oh my God,
Exactly.
like you don't even know, because I'm a minimalistic UI guy.
Well,
I like to have 1, maybe 2 bars, and then maybe a third for like my oh my God buttons.
They did something similar, in EverQuest with the AA tree. You remember this, Josh, in EverQuest 2. You could, have your skill. You could save it as, your single player skill set up. Then you would have your group player set up. Then you could have your raid player set up. Then you could have your own customizable. Do that to the UI, and you just go click, boom, it loads that one in, and you're done. Now, another thing I want to talk about, because it definitely needs to be talked about, and people are going to hate it, but certain modifications that have become custom to the modern games out there, should they be something that VR should kind of keep in the back of the head? Or do you think that, nope. So I'm talking about stuff like aggrometer, stuff like for healers, a preemptive cast bar from the NPCs. Do you think these are features that they should, kind of keep in the back of the head and pursue for the more modern day player, and have that as optional stuff to load in? Or do you think that this should be completely ignored and should never be a part of the game? It has to be talked about.
Well, if I may jump in here real quick here, I'm going to say that certain things like an aggro meter, DPS meter, gear score, stuff like that, those do not help the game. They don't at all. Because what the DPS, I'll go through one by one. What DPS meter basically does is makes you ignore everything and just go for damage. I understand you're a damage dealer, but a dead damage dealer does no damage. A lot of us old school-ish type players they prefer the steady DPS over the spiky DPS. Like, for example,
burst damage.
This rogue's only alive for a third of the fight, but he's done like 25% of the damage. Like, that's all well and good, like insanely good. Instead of causing issue and then dying, and then yelling at the tank. But so that causes a split between everything, and it doesn't promote learning your character.
No.
Aggrometer, same kind of thing here. It makes you not really try to even get to know your group, because you just watch this meter and you just go and hammer on your keys.
I'm not first yet.
Yeah. Whereas you don't get this sense of fellowship from your group, knowing that, okay, I know what's going to happen before the tank even does it. I know what the healer is going to do. It's like, oh, I just got hit by a cleave. The healer knows not to waste a heal on me. He knows I'll run out of range, and I'll wait for him to toss me a heal before I run in. Stuff like that. It really, you end up synergizing so much better with your group, and you feel a form of fellowship or kinship with your group, and that actually creates friendships. With gear score, I've never liked gear scores.
I hate gear score.
Yeah, they do nothing. They do nothing but give you a reason to push people aside, to make you feel like so and so is better than so and so. It's not good, because maybe this this item versus this item. One's got more strength, one's got more stamina. Well, technically, they're not any better. They're just better at different situations. So putting a score on it is kind of pointless.
And also, it alienates newer players that come
Yes.
into the game because, hey, they're not up there, and they get frustrated because they can't get up there.
And plus, people start comparing people and, you know, chewing them apart because, hey, you're level 30, you should have this and this score. Why haven't you got it yet? We're not going to take you with us. You're a bad person. You suck.
Correct.
All it does is it serves to segregate your community. Because, I mean, it's all about the adventure. Well, if everything's going to be easy because everyone's got a 10,000 gear score, why are you doing it? It's easy. It's pointless, you know?
Exactly.
I don't know. I mean, I've also got bad taste in my mouth from WoW because I saw too many people trying to get into content for the first time. People saying, you can't go here without this gear score. And I sit there and I look at it and go, you realize they would have to have done this content because this is intro content for this expansion to get that gear score.
Yeah. I'm curious about detrimental bars. So the mob is casting maybe poison cloud type of thing. Do you want to see these effects floating on you so you can insecure type of thing?
As a tank, I love to see enemy cast bars.
Yeah.
As it gives me a chance to interrupt. I'm not going to be watching chat. I mean, in EverQuest 1, it was all watch chat. Wait till you see the so-and-so is casting a spell. And then you would bash them or try to interrupt or whatever you have. Honestly, if, you know, the stuff is hitting the fan, I'm probably not watching chat. And when things hit the fan, that one interrupt could be a matter of life and death. Which, yes, that's kind of one of the things that separated good tanks from bad tanks. And you could watch for casting glows and effects. But still, the cast bar is just a little bit easier for my old eyes.
The thing is with this bar, it's not so much a cheat or, you know, something that's, you know, over or interfering with the game, because it requires actually a lot of damn skill to time your interactions right to prevent it from, you know, killing the group or doing damage on the tank. Especially as a healer, having these kind of bars to preemptively kind of plan my heals. If I cast it 2 seconds too early, hey, I'm out of luck. So it's going to take time for people to kind of, like, you know, get the gist of it. And that's what kind of clarifies, you know, the good players against the not so good players. And especially, you know, we saw this happen in EverQuest 2. This was something that came in about five years after the game release, is when they started having all these, you know, bars come in for healers to be able to preemptive, or tanks to be able to preemptively react towards a certain special from the encounter. The only reason that came in is because the programming for the raids and all the functionality and all the different kind of scripting got so ridiculous that it was almost impossible to accommodate all these different ways of raiding, through chat, through voice, through this, because people weren't paying attention. So they brought this in as a visualization, and I didn't mind it, to be honest. You know, especially in raids, I was always looking at my group window, I was looking at my raid window, and I was looking at the cast bar. That's what I was concentrating on. That's what you do as a healer. You're not looking at the game, you're looking at your bar, their bars, the NPC's bar, and then you're reacting.
Correct.
Yep.
I think that it would be great if there was some sort of an indicator on the actual mob. It's not on the mob itself, but through the mob's actions. So if the mob is going to do a big cleave, you see him raise his axe over his head to bring it down, so you can interrupt him. From a graphical point of view, that makes a heck of a lot more sense to look out for something like that. And I find it a bit lazy by the people that do all the animations and things like that they don't put things like that in it. But I understand why not. Time is a factor, and it's a heck of a lot of work to do all of that stuff.
And some people actually argue that having these visual animations actually make the game less fun, because you can automatically predict that he's doing something, so it takes away from the challenge, because they only have a limited amount of animations. They're not going to give the encounter thousands of animations. They'll randomize them, but once you've got the gist of it and you know that this basilisk has 5 different animations or 5 different specialities that it's going to do, once you've got the hang of it, then it's easy peasy, basically.
Yeah, and that is absolutely true. Yes, WoW spoiled me with cast bars for my enemies. If there was an animation, I wouldn't need them, because I'm usually watching them. But maybe it's because I'm playing more EQ these days than anything. Like, I don't care about my chat. I use the chat tail windows so that I don't miss them. Other than that, I barely watch chat, because I got better things to do. I'm swinging my swords. One thing I'm going to say, Architar in chat does bring up a very good point that gear score on its own is fine, and it's just what people do with it that's wrong. That is 100% correct. Absolutely.
Correct, yeah.
But, if you don't have that epitomal gear score mechanic, like you see the little number on the bottom of the tooltip, people are going to be going for gear that's better no matter what. That's kind of like the point of the game, is that whole gear treadmill. But with that score, it's one more reason for people to look down on you.
And another thing is, well, with gear scores, it's not, you don't have to always see the negative. See the positive of it. The positive is, of having a gear score, it makes you want to get better. Because you haven't reached that score yet. You cannot enter that dungeon, or you can't go here into that zone. You can't do this. If you're a decent person, and we're a decent community, and we bring that across to make people want to better themselves, then having a gear score is actually a good thing. So view it from that perspective as well. But I wanted to bring something else in that I think is really important to talk about, is the guild UI. The options available to guilds. There's so much need in the guild UIs in general. When I look through all the games that I've played, MMOs, etc., and viewed all the UIs that they have available, and the options that are available to the guild leader, the guild officers, and so forth, there is so much need to drastically modify and update the guild options. Sending out one message to everybody, boom. That has to be something that should be a quality of life feature. I should be able to, as an officer or a guild leader, or generally anybody, have the option available that the guild leadership or the people that have control over what people are allowed to do, the ranking system, as an option to send messages globally to everybody in the guild with just typing it once. Stuff like that.
And also similar things to calendars, for instance.
Yeah.
You as the leader, if you're going to say, well, let's go raid on such and such a day, it should automatically pop up for people in your guild maybe 2 hours before their raid time, and say raid in 2 hours type of thing.
Right.
So it should be smart that way, that it assists everybody, I think.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. There's a lot of things, especially calendars. That was one of the things about WoW that I absolutely loved. Doing a lot of raiding in WoW, I loved that whole calendar thing. Oh, I'd hug it and kiss it if I could. But there's some things in it that needed improving. When someone adds a new event that pertains to you, like say you add an event that's only for level 50 to 60, then anyone who's level 50 to 60 should get this little just ping in their chat, go, a new event was added to your calendar, just add a name of it or maybe a category or whatever. So let you know, hey, the calendar updated, this might be interesting to you, go check it out. Your alerts for, hey, this is happening in X amount of time, great, I love it. I would love for the client or the user themselves to be able to say, send me reminders this amount of time, kind of like how I guess Google Calendar does it, where you say 15 minutes beforehand, an hour, a day, whatever. Because I lose track of time so much. So it'd be nice to have something to go, hey, you're signed up to this event, however they want to handle that, if they want to do something like that. Maybe I just click something that says, remind me. And that reminds me a day ahead of time for this raid. Well, that gives me plenty of time to go, hey, I should probably go get my potions or finish up working on this set of gear or whatever, so that I'm actually prepared and I'm not sitting here an hour before raid going, oops.
It's the same. It's the same with adding options to the guild UI, like being able to run a poll in game. Yes, stuff like that. So when you're discussing maybe drop loot that you have left over, you can do polls on it. You can do voting on it. This and that along the side of without it interfering with the core game. So it's something that you could set up to run for 3 days or whatever, and they can then basically everybody can do that on the side. It's got its separate area. These are things that we definitely would bring a quality of life to how guilds are run and the options available to them, socializing, being able to even create multiple guild group chats within your guild.
Correct.
So if I want to, I'm in a group doing something, but I want to chat on the side with my officers or with somebody else that isn't an officer, but I have officers involved, that I can create a custom chat where only he and her and the officers are in, and chat with them on the side. Those are options that should be available to guilds. Give us more variety to have free realm on how we want to set things up.
Yeah, DKP is a prime example. I've never come across any game yet that handles the DKP properly internally as well. And splitting the coin automatically from raids, etc. It would be great to build that in from the start so that it works properly. And I know it's quite a contentious issue because some people don't like the DKP system or would prefer to do it as outside of the actual game itself. But I still believe that if you do it correctly from the start, there wouldn't be a need for a third-party type of system.
Exactly. I mean, I actually created a DKP system or website when I was running a raiding guild, and all it did is I took the log file from the raid and I parsed it. I walked through it and I dealt with everything, and I had it so that certain bosses were worth certain amounts. But the thing with DKP systems, and a reason that a lot of people don't like them, is because there's so many different ways to do them, and there's so many ways for people to kind of fall through the cracks. I mean, I've seen everything from min bid to max bid to auction to basically paying for a chance to roll. There's tons of ways to do it. None are necessarily right, none are necessarily wrong, but there's got to be something in between.
Well, they could basically create the standard DKP elements that are generally used inside the guild UI window for raiding, and with the option of having to be able to ask, do polls or do votes, multiple choice, and this, that, and the other. That would kind of be on par with what you were talking about with min, max, money bid, and so forth, because you could do it that way by having those features available to you. But with that said, though, not everybody's going to want to use DKP. There's loot counseling as well, for instance.
Right.
And there's also
sadly,
raid need.
Yeah, sadly, raiding is kind of another one of these, especially with loot. It's one of these things where there's a lot of ways to do it, but there's not really a right way. There's just a right way for you.
Correct.
And you may get into a guild, if you're not a leader, where they don't do it the way you like. Well, it's one of those things you got to do balance. You got to balance it. I mean, do you like the people in the guild? Do you like their DKP system? You have to decide if you still should be here or not. I mean, that's up to you, the player. But I mean, I've been in guilds where they've swapped around to multiple different systems. They went from the DKP system, went to a loot council system, to basically where you had to earn the ability to just roll, and that roll cost you DKP points if you won or not. To a point where It was a fairly complex system, but I will just dumb it down. Basically, there was certain individuals who were in the loot council that basically said this person is needs a sword more than any of these other people, and then they all agreed and gave it to them. I mean, like I said, there's no right or wrong way. It's just you got to find out what's going to work.
It can get extremely complicated.
Yes.
And that's why it's a very difficult thing to implement, I guess. But if it's customizable, then you should be able to do these type of things.
Well, you know, it's a system that's going to be used regardless. DKP has been around for like forever. Loot counseling has been around like forever. Those are the two most common ways of going about loot. So adding those features already in the core element of the UI to some state with giving people the choice of A or B and then being able to customize to some point is a lot of work, but it's going to be used anyway. So take advantage of it.
It's one of those things where, like, we'll take an LFG system as an example. Not done right or just slapped together, it will not be used, and it's a waste of time. Done right, it will be used all the time.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, it's just like the LFG system where no one has really done it right, so that's why everyone's just like, LFG system.
Yeah, that's another thing I don't, Dungeon Finder. It's something I would not want to see inside Pantheon. I hate them with a passion. Because what's the point? I mean, yes, okay, lack of finding groups. They create Dungeon Finder to help you find groups more quicker. You get put in a timer, this, that, and the other. That's all wonderful. Thank you for helping us with that. But you get put in groups with random people that you never know, or even across the world. In Terra, you got linked up with people from across the world. So I was with Americans, with Japanese, with Russians, with all kinds of people from all over in a group. So, first problem you have, communication. Second problem you have is people start running you down because your gear's at the bare minimum, again, due to gear score. Just to quickly update on the gear score discussion, because it went on for quite some time. At the end of the day, we're at fault for doing that, the way gear score has been handled, because we're all pessimistic, thinking about ourselves and ourselves first and not everybody else kind of attitude. It's what we humans do. We think about ourselves rather than everybody else and the general picture. And that's why gear score sucks for the most, because it's been used and and abused the wrong way. The general idea of gear score is definitely good, but it's us that destroy these systems. But, getting back to what I was saying, Dungeon Finder is just horrible. It's horrible. Because there can be so much that can go wrong, and then obviously they limitize your options available to you when you're going into the Dungeon Finder. You start, you build a group, or LFG Finder or Dungeon Finder. You get the group, you set it up. Now, all of a sudden, you've only got restricted options. You can either pick DPS, melee, heal. But what happens if I want to take, for instance, a tank as an additional DPS for whatever reason? Or I want to take a healer for an additional DPS because there's nothing else available. They restrict those options. But LFG Finder in general is just a bad idea, because not
every group is created equal.
Yeah, not every group is created equal, and I'd rather interact with the people first and talk to them before I go and pick up group.
Yeah, LFG is definitely one of the absolute hardest things to do in terms of a UI or feature in an MMO. Being a developer myself, I can tell you that some of the work behind it is just like, I know why they did that, but it's not going to work. And honestly, Pantheon especially would be safer just to avoid it.
Yeah.
I don't think there's been any plans for an LFG system. Thank you, but
and they can restrict it to chat as well, to be honest. Create an LFG channel where everybody uses the LFG channel, and then you're good to go.
Yes. And I mean, that still makes you socialize a little bit. you know, versus just, it's kind of like if you were going to be put into a house to live for, you know, we'll say a month with some random people, you kind of want to make sure you can kind of get along with them a little bit first, versus just you show up the door, hey, it's like, oh great, I'm not getting along with any of these people. Wonderful. Then you got to go through that misery, or you just leave.
Yeah.
And leaving usually leaves a bad taste in other people's mouths too. So
I need to look for something real quick.
actually, here's a question for you guys. What do you think about like non-visual UI stuff, like we'll say target forwarding? Meaning,
What are you looking for?
Meaning if you're targeting an
I don't
enemy,
have it.
targeting your tank, your heal that you cast on that enemy instead gets routed to the tank.
Right, sorry, say again. I didn't hear because my wife kind of butted in.
How do you feel about non-visual UI features, such as target forwarding for spells? For instance, you're targeting an enemy who's targeting the tank. You cast a heal on that enemy. Because he's an enemy, you don't want to heal him. So it's forwarded to his target, which is the tank, and you end up healing the tank.
Well, for me personally, technically, while I can understand where some people come from, but if I'm a healer, I'm in a group, I'm not going to be stupid enough to heal the enemy. You know, it should be that's where it kind of hits the boundary of intelligence.
Well, no, this is a rather smart feature because you can't heal in most games. You can't heal the enemy.
Exactly.
So instead, it goes to that enemy's target, and it saves you from having to click them. So that's a smart feature.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. But people, you know, in EverQuest, for instance, you could heal the enemy if you weren't paying attention. Now, while that was maybe part of the challenge in today's day and age, I'm sorry, but there's smarter ways to go about challenge. So when it comes to stuff like that, Lex, sure, go for it. I'd have it in game.
Yeah. See, I'm personally a fan of that too because I think it was EverQuest 2 that had the rescue ability, which was like a massive threat taunt and like I bomb your body shield for a few seconds. If I saw that my enemy wasn't targeting me, I hit rescue and he was instantly on me, or if I had an ability that shielded whoever he was targeting, I didn't have to worry about, F3, okay, now I hit 7, now I have to hit tab to target him again, and okay, now we're good. Because I rarely hit the proper key.
Yeah, there has to be... A lot of people complain about those systems because, you know, it's easy mode. No, you can argue that because...
It is easier.
It's easier, but it's, you know, it's based off of intelligence, and there's different ways to add challenge to that by adding the chance of it fizzling or not. I mean, I told you guys I think it was on Tuesday, about my dilemma that I had with my warden. Every time I logged in, my heals would just go right through the entire... Anybody that I healed in the group, they would just fizzle away. They wouldn't even heal. They wouldn't even... They were particles in the air, not part of the game's core programming.
Like an air freshener.
Yeah. So, you know, there's features definitely to add to that. Because I love smart targeting. You know, I would like... If I'm in a group, you're my tank... I would always have F2 would be my tank. I would have you in my target and heal you and do my damage through you.
I think it's definitely something that should be toggleable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If that's even a word. You should be able to toggle it on and off.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, some people really like it, some people don't. You might want to put restrictions on something that easy for a PvP server.
Yeah.
Simply because PvP is much, much more raw skill based.
Yep.
But when it comes to PvE challenges, I mean, there's usually so much going on and so much organization that has to happen that little bit of saving of time goes a lot longer than any downsides to it.
You and me, we played EverQuest 2, Josh.
Yeah.
Without that feature, how often do you think we would have died because it is like a microsecond decision? If you were not paying attention because of the challenges that were given, you know, if you didn't have that person in target or couldn't target him in direct, you know, heal through that or heal through the mob, a lot of people would have died 1,000 times more than they already did.
Course.
because there was, split-second decisions had to be made, and with those features, those are smart features, and if they want, like you said, if they want to, or be able to give the option to toggle to use it or not. My question with that though is, will there be kind of an unbalancing? Would that kind of disturb the core grouping mechanic?
That's a very good question, and something that would not be easily answered.
Yeah, exactly.
I think I'm going to leave that one for VR. Sorry. You guys can figure that one out. Because I'm not very well versed in a lot of their background mechanics and designs, so I'm not even going to just stand on the soapbox and assume.
Final discussion before we go into the questions.
Yep.
Actually, two quick things I want to bring up.
Nickel, he hit it on the head. I just remembered that.
We'll do this one first. Now we know that technically there's not going to be a map in Pantheon. But we all saw in the stream that they had the map icon up there. Now, there's been discussions, we've talked about this, people in the forums talk about this, about having a trade school for scribing, where people can draw maps and sell them on the market, and this, that, and yada, yada, yada. Now, what about if they did have a map feature, but it's something that is player drawn inside the game? So I would basically press M, have a blank piece of paper, draw my outlines on the map, and put my own points of interest, monuments, roads, this, that, and the other for my own personal use.
Or for your guild's use.
Or for the or however you want to do it. Basically, I would be able to draw the map myself. Because we're all going to do it anyway. Everybody's going to draw a map. Everybody's going to do that. Everybody's going to have a piece of paper, or they're going to have third party, this and that. Why not put it in the game as a blank piece of paper where you can draw?
Right. Well,
and make your own notes and this and that.
I'd even be fine if there was a map that was very, very generalized, and it was like the Fog of War. You go there and it uncovers a part of the map, but it's very, very generic, looks very hand-drawn, and then you are able to place markers or notes on it somewhere. I'd be cool with that, because you're not basically given all the details. Some details might be wrong. Some details might be accurate to a point. Because it's like this. If there's no map, which I believe they said there wasn't, you basically just killed a tree. Because I'm going to print that sucker. I'm going to find maps. I'm going to print every one of them out, and I'm going to have in a binder on my desk. The way it is.
So just put it in game. Second thing I wanted to bring up, and Josh, want to add something to that, to the maps, before I bring up the second one?
No, I agree that you should have something in-game to do it. The only thing that I'd say that if they're going to do that, then they must give you some tools for map drawing, number one. And number two, it should be skill-based. The higher you go up as a cartographer or something like that, the more detail you can actually put onto your map.
Good idea.
That's a great idea too, because then you would constantly be going back to other zones to see if, with this higher skill, there's anything new.
That's definitely a great idea. A way to do it, kind of bring in, instead of having it as a trade skill, maybe have it as a secondary skill that you can skill up. Because I like that in World of Warcraft. I think it was World of Warcraft that did that. I could put in a little circle. I could click on the map anywhere and add my own notes to it.
Yeah.
I loved that feature in World of Warcraft. I have to be honest. That was a great feature. Me being able to put in notes and indications and whatever. Because sometimes you might not remember the name. Sometimes you have a problem pronouncing the name. Sometimes you just, instead of calling it a rock, you call it a stone. Because you just can't remember what the rocky thingy damn thing is. Yep, so boom. At least I understand what my map is saying to me. I don't have to rely on third-party maps and figure out what the hell are they talking about this spiral. That's not a spiral. That's just a straight random stair.
That's not a spiral. That's a helix.
Or a helix, exactly. So anyway, second thing.
That's not a planet. That's a Death Star. Yeah.
The in-game message box. One thing that bugged the hell out of me was one item. Only this you could either send items, you could either only send gold. You couldn't send multiple items. You couldn't send out multiple mails to multiple people. If I've got, for instance, we've done a raid, I'm doing a cash out because we've got, leftovers, or we've got some gear that's left over. We've got some new people in the guild, or, we've seen some new people in the game come in, and I've checked out their gear. It's not too good. I know we've got stuff left over. I go into my message box, and I say, instead of a single mail to one single person, a kind of like, what's the English word? Multiple names.
Multiple recipients?
Yeah, multiple recipients. Boom, put it in there, and then I write down all their names with comma or however they want to break it up. I put that item in there. Here you go, guys. Boom, send. I'm done.
See, that's actually a good opportunity to add another money sink to the game. Maybe a mail is, we'll say, just off the top of my head, 1 silver for 1 recipient. If you add items, then all of a sudden there's a carrying fee. So that's a gold per item or whatever, and then you add another recipient, and then it's another, whatever, however they want to do it. It's a great opportunity for a money sink simply because lots of people will use it.
I want to see in one of the main cities a huge Pantheon post office.
Yes.
That has been built through all the money that they've got.
And then you see the pack ponies preparing to march off and bring everybody their parcels and their gifts and their money.
The ponies painted red and blue.
Anyway,
we digress.
There's definitely room for a lot more discussion on this, so we will be doing a second discussion and a third maybe and whatnot. We'll see
more focused.
Yeah, a little more focused. But this is how we are. We have fun doing this. How we are on screen is how we are off screen. We're raw. And Fogzor, questions, thoughts?
Regale us with the questions.
Well, I do have a few for you. Are you ready?
Yep.
Ready to go.
All right. Well, I'm going to start off with Centro 7. What do the guys think about environmental interactions with the UI? When you're in a frigid climate, your fire spells, slots, freeze over, etc. It might be a nice visual cue.
It would be
that's actually very good.
Nice visual candy kind of thing. I mean, as long as it didn't affect the UI, like say it puts just at random, it could put like a little ice sheet over one of the abilities. You click it and it shatters, but it still uses the ability. It's complete and utter candy, but I think it'd be worth looking at to see how well it would work. Or at least the ability to turn it off.
Yeah, you see it as candy. I see it as partially important because in that frozen environment, I would assume that any fire-based spells would have less of an effect. And thus maybe the timer for that spell itself might be slower to actually refresh for those fire spells. So it could have an effect on the UI in that regard as well.
I would say actually the other way around, to be honest. In an ice area, fighting ice goblins and engaging in ice damage, my ice spells would be less effective. Therefore, my fire would be. So basically, the other way around. But one thing I will say, though, is I would lose my mind every time. Having something like kind of grayed out or this or that, I would always think that my spell is broken.
Well, what about if it was a case like this? Say your character gets struck by a lightning spell, and all of a sudden you get like little lightning or energy waves around the edge of your UI for a few seconds. Would that be more distracting, or would that be immersion?
What's that again?
Say you're struck with an ability. Okay, that's lightning. So now around the edge of your UI, there's like lightning.
I love that. The acclimation system, what they did. With the ice, the screen free, I dig that stuff. That would be fantastic.
But that's just an overlay. What if they extended that towards like your UI elements? Like your windows would get frost on them and stuff.
It's fluff, but I wouldn't. If it's an option that I can turn on and off as I please or whatever, I can have it on, I can have it off. I'll be perfectly fine. But if it was in the game as a core feature, no.
Yeah, I think it's a cool idea on the face of it, but in practicality, I think it would annoy the crap out of me.
So next one, Shai.
The next one is from Surprise Barty. Question: with touchscreens getting more and more common for laptops and monitors, would you like to see that be supported in the game? And what could be some cool uses?
Well, from technology standpoint, because the monitor is a touchscreen, it is therefore compatible with the game because all it's doing is moving your mouse and clicking for you. So your touchscreen does work in the game. I don't think anything special really needs to be done because I work on multiple systems myself. I'm not a fan of touchscreens, but the last thing I would ever want to see is someone go like that on their monitor because they had to do something and all of a sudden smash.
My thinking around touchscreens and using an iPad, etc., would be more around for crafting, maybe when you weren't at your monitor and you wanted to maybe start another crafting thing while you were away. So the technology of having UIs or having some sort of app linked to the game may be good. But they'd have to be very careful in the way they use it, in my mind.
Yeah, I just can't. I could, run faster, run faster. Nah, all jokes aside, for certain elements, like I was talking about at the very beginning of the show, a swipeable UI, I could see that where that would be working. Game wise, yeah, whatever. If it's there, it's there. But again, it shouldn't be the key focus because not everybody's going to be looking towards the future. It's like saying 3D options. The game's now in 3D. It's something that has to be very thought through because not everybody's going to be on the same technological level, but everybody's going to have one of these, a mouse, and a keyboard. Yeah. So keep it at that for now until technology has reached a point where it's a standard system. Then definitely, that could be maybe the future.
I'll never touch my screen. Fingerprints drive me.
That's the other thing as well. That's the downside of it.
Sorry.
Fat fingers.
Cost spell.
That's it. 3D virtual reality.
Well, let's actually extend that question a little bit further. What would you guys feel if they had VR support? VR support for VR?
If again, it was something that was majority standard, then I could definitely understand that. But having it split between the middle or whatever, where they have this option already available and you can play it either normal or you can play it through VR, nah. I can't see it working. Because there's that balancing. Because of the reaction time and this and that. Cool, it would definitely be cool. We all know Brad's vision 10 years down the road from now is Pantheon, Minecraft, virtual reality. That's his envision. So definitely cool. I'm waiting for the first MMO to come out that has VR capability. But first off, the prices have to drop, technology has to get a lot better, and the support has to be there.
Agreed.
Yeah.
But my feeling around VR is that they'd have to, for me, it feels as if they'd need to dumb the game down a lot in order to facilitate it properly. I don't know if you guys understand what I'm saying, but for me it would take away a lot of the complexity of the game and how you actually deal with the game itself. So unless they can get that right somehow, I don't see VR working very well.
I'd be more accepting if it was just like the VR headset instead of your monitor.
Yeah.
You turn, your character turns, so you can kind of feel like you're actually there. I'd be cool with that.
I would definitely dig that. Having the VR headset on and then see my character and then I'm moving around, but I'm still controlling it with the keyboard.
Yeah,
if I could do that.
In the visor, I guess you call it, controlled your mouse movement. That's about it. That's all I need. But
Yeah.
with the hands and all that stuff, no.
But can you still, use a keyboard and do the VR and look at what numbers you're pressing? That's the other thing as well that comes into it. How are you going to operate your keys and movements? So it would definitely be cool if they could kind of do VR in that kind of way. Yeah, definitely. Anyway, next question, Shai, or whatever you've got for us.
Well, I've got 4 more questions. What about having... This is from Svarti, by the way. What about having spells and abilities able to affect the UI, like blind making your screen and action bars go black?
It should.
Well, I expect...
When I'm blind, I shouldn't see anything.
That's what I expect generally from the game, is when I have poison damage, or I'm asleep, or I've been bedazzled. I expect my screen to... be blurry, or I expect my screen to go black. I expect my screen to, give off a injury vibe when I'm close to death. And so technically, the spells that interact with me should affect my whole entire screen, not just the UI. So, like Lexa said, if I've been put to sleep, my screen goes black.
Yeah. Well,
if I'm drunk, it's blurry.
Yeah. Go look at. If you haven't, go check out EverQuest 1 when you got blinded, or when you got drunk. That's the stuff of legends right there. When you're level 1 fighting something and it blinds you and your whole screen goes black, I can't even count how many people are like, did my computer just die?
Yeah. It's like, we've all had that before. Black screen, you're zoning into an instance or whatever, or into a zone. You all of a sudden get a black screen, and it's never happened before. You're like, did it die? Did it die? Nope, definitely.
I can still hear the audio. What's going on?
Yep. Josh, anything to add?
It certainly adds a lot of immersion.
It adds immersion, yeah. I remember in one of the zones where they had that skull coming at you type of thing at your screen.
Yeah, the skeleton.
I can't remember what the zone was, but that was quite interesting. As long as they don't overdo it, otherwise it becomes a bit gimmicky.
Yeah, and it's like something that's a critical falling asleep spell hits you. It's critted, it hits you. Then okay, turn my screen black. Or I've got absolutely shit-faced. Then yeah, I'm gonna have 20 versions of me on the screen, and I'm gonna figure out which one is the right character and bump into everything. Yep, definitely. So, Shai, next one?
The next one is again from Svarti. Question. What about having a autocorrect or autocomplete for your chat tabs?
No.
Nope.
Which I personally like the idea of autocorrect because I can't spell half the time.
Yeah, can you imagine the autocorrect mistakes that'll suddenly
The thing is... especially Brits and Americans, we all have different ways of saying things. So some people say dog with D-A-W-G. Some people pronounce words differently and write them differently. So having an autocorrect kind of is like thingy filter inside the chat system. It's kind of like a slap in the face towards one's self-intelligence, because that might be the way they speak in that area, or how they learn to write, and it's constantly getting corrected for spelling dog wrong. And plus we have internet chat or game chat. We've shortened everything. LOL, LMAO, TTYL. There's so many shortcuts nowadays that I expect to see a lot of 3-letter words form a complete sentence, and we have to go and figure that all out.
Back to the old school way. Tilde at the first of a sentence meant sarcastic. If you made a mistake in your previous message, you would type the new word and put an asterisk on the end of it.
Correct.
Yep.
Old school for the win is that. But and the last thing I want... one of the main reasons I don't want autocorrect is because I'm not going to be able to take anything people say to me seriously. Someone's going to tell me, go freckle yourself. And I'm like, what?
and now on a serious note, the problem with that as well is going to require VR a hell of a ton of resources, because they're going to actually need native speakers that actually understand the individual languages, because if you add autofilter to the English language, you have to add it to all the others. And trust me, German, you Americans can't translate German, I'm sorry. You will not be able to do it. You will fail. It's a tough language. I mean, I'll give you a good example. For the word my, there are mine, meins, meine, meine, meinem, meinen. There's 6 different ways to say mine, or 7.
And Minecraft.
So you know, and they all have a certain way and form to what they go to.
Mm-hmm.
So
different inflections or whatever.
that would cost a lot of money to do as well. That would definitely cost a lot of money to do, to add an autocorrect feature. I mean, yeah, you could technically take the word, to autocorrect, and put that in there.
But that's why they have specific German servers, don't they? And French servers, and
yeah. Well, see, here's the thing. If you want to mix cultures, I'm cool with that. I love that. Instead of adding an autocorrect feature, I'd like to see keywords that will auto-translate from client to client. So I could say pulling, and it will show up in German as pulling, with the proper inflection or whatever word it is to bringing stuff in, you know, or pulling on something.
But what about your smartphone? If I go into my smartphone and I go
aren't that smart.
and I go into let's say Discord. I'll try and get it on the screen right now. What I'm talking, because I don't know the English term to this. I'm sorry. When I type, it gives me keywords to pick out, so I can go like this, type a G-O, and on my screen it gives me multiple choices. I just click on the top button here, and then I can basically just click. It will automatically form my sentence for me. What about something like that?
I mean, that'd work. In Final Fantasy XI, I think it was, they had a real great translation system because there was a lot of Japanese and English on the same server. And you would basically start typing a word, and I think it was like you hit tab or something, it would come up with this list of ones that started with those letters. And you could just make a macro, like for incoming, the mob's name, wait 4 seconds, you know, and that would be translated, you know, between different clients. And then all of a sudden, the English people and the Japanese people were playing together, and they were synergizing well because of this system. I love that. It's a lot of work. I mean, insane amount of work. But that's one of those wish lists items where if it came in the game, I'd be outside with like sparklers dancing in the streets.
Have a Google Translate automatically, you know, translate into a common language. So they're typing in Chinese, the other one's typing in Japanese, the other one's typing in Russian. It all comes out in a global language, English. Woohoo!
No, just no.
Anyway, jokes aside. Next one.
From Sparty, Crossbars. See the entire spell with when it will go out and the name of the spell, or just a casting prompt.
I don't think there needs to be a lot of information. Like if it's a progress bar, one of those, like, I don't know, you could do it standard or reverse, where the mob starts casting, or whoever starts casting it fills up. When it's filled up, it's done, or it empties. Either way, I don't think you need like how much seconds it has left. Like you'll see it constantly counting down. But I don't think there's any point.
See, that's
you're just watching anyway. You can determine yourself.
But that's one of those things that we're talking about.
Yeah.
Pointless discussion. It should be available as options.
It should be. For me, I don't think that's needed. I don't think you need all the information. But some other people do.
Yeah, so you just basically give everybody the options available. They can turn them on and off how they want, and you're done with it. If I want to have the cast time on there, or how long the spell is going to be lasting, or if I want to have the information on the entire spell, if I want to have the shortened version of what it does, and this and that, those should be options available to us, and everybody should be able to pick and choose how they want. These are what we're talking about when we, this is why we're doing the UI discussion. These are exactly the kind of questions we want to address, because it's a no-brainer. This is what we're talking about when we talk about smart UI. These are features that should be available regardless, and per click can be turned on and off and modified how the player wants to interact with them. So, next.
And final question from Svarti was, there was discussion quite some time ago about the UI and restricting people to not make it cluttered through having zones on the screen where you could not put UI elements. Pros and cons, what are your thoughts on this?
I didn't quite get the question.
If zones restricted UI elements, basically.
Yeah, zones
I
that you couldn't put stuff in.
I think it would be a very interesting challenge.
It would be.
It would certainly be new and unique. It'd be one of those things where I would be very, very afraid that they'd overuse it. Because if you overuse it too much, it could go from interesting to, oh my god, I'm so annoying, I'm never coming here again.
It's definitely challenge accepted worthy. Because what would you want to lock out?
You could lock out like your group windows where you can see everybody's health. All of a sudden now people have to communicate, oh my god, I'm dying! I'll save you. But
from that perspective,
the tank and healer would be very, very agitated. Or I don't know.
That's one of those things where I see it. That's the balancing issue.
Yeah.
Because not everybody's going to have the same UI, and that's something that should be standardized. Either it's going to be like that completely, or it's not. We can't have people have the option to go the hardcore route, and the other ones go the middle class route, and the other ones go the easy mode route. It's not going to work, especially when you're grouping, because I've got it turned off, Lex has got it turned on to some point, and Joshua's got it completely easy.
Yeah.
Now we're trying to group, and I'm communicating or doing something. I don't see what the hell's going on, but they're yelling at me for whatever reason and stuff like that. It would not. It's a good idea, but only as something that is generalized and is the only given option. But if in the way we are now, it wouldn't work.
Well, the only way I can actually kind of see that working, just off the top of my head, not putting a lot of thought into it, is maybe you hit a zone where you don't see the health bar of the enemies. So you just have to assume how well you're doing or something like that. I mean, versus seeing his health bar visibly drop. I mean, I could see that as being a decent enough challenge to where, with the variation between mobs, what's going on? This guy should have died.
Yeah. If it's something that's going to affect the entire group, then yes. Be it through the mob's perspective or through ours. So we zone into this new zone, and all of a sudden, none of us can see the health bars. Okay, that would be perfectly fine. That would work. Could add a bit of fun. That could be something that the GMs do, or they do as an update, an April Fool's joke or whatever. Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. But it would have to affect everybody, regardless of their UI settings, for it to work. So
it would have to be a common element between all clients, independent of personal style or preference.
Yep. In
order to work correctly, and that is the hard part, especially when we're pushing for everyone being able to customize their UI their way.
So we'll answer this final question, go into our final thoughts, because we've kind of definitely overdone this one. Jared Woodhouse asks, you may have covered this, but bag location on when they are open so the screen isn't cluttered with bag. This is something that should be smart UI. You can put it wherever you want. You can resize it however you want. You can have it go vertical, horizontal,
put it where
huge,
you want.
Small, put it where you want.
Remember where they were.
Multiple choice options for setting up how your bags are going to interact with the items and this and that. So we definitely covered that at the in the middle of the show. That should be it's another no-brainer.
Right.
We shouldn't have fixed positioning. I should be able to put the stuff where I want.
Like, personally, I don't remember what game it was. There was a game where if you had your bags open, you started moving, it closed all your bags. I actually liked it.
Yes, Smarty, get online.
Anything that was like a clicky item went to my hotbar. So I didn't have to go digging through my bags, especially on the run. And if they didn't auto-close, the bags would have been stuck up in the corner of my screen for probably another 30 minutes. it's stuff like that that I really enjoy. It's like I move, it closes my bags for me. I obviously don't need them because I'm doing something else.
What I used to hate is when you moved something, logged out the game, logged back in, and it was back to standard. I used to hate that. It's the same with when they do updates. I've seen this happen in EverQuest 2 all the time. Every time they did an update for the game, your UI would get standard. It would get put back to the core element. Your user interface, how you set it up, however, is still set up the way you had it, but standard stuff like your bag positions, your bag size, your guild window, and all that stuff would go back to the raw element of how it was initially. That is something they definitely need to take care of. That does not happen when they do updates or when they have rollbacks and crashes and stuff. They need to kind of keep the UI settings on a separate element on the server that is generally an asset to the game and not a core feature of the game.
Correct.
One thing that I'm going to add to it all is like that I just remembered that I absolutely loved about Rift. Everything about your UI was on the server per character. You could load from other characters if you wanted. It even saved your macros. Everything. I loved it. Oh my god, that does take an awful lot of space and a lot of resources, so I don't know if I'll ever see some of that in Pantheon, but my god, if that happened, I would buy every person from VR that I ever met a drink.
Well, they say
Just for
server
that.
space is fairly cheap these days, so
It is. I
should
mean,
be able
you can
to.
buy a terabyte drive for like what, 90 bucks now.
But
Anyway, there's a lot more to it than that.
We, as you can see, we've now almost reached 40 minutes over time. So we went into extra time for this show. You can see there's definitely a lot of discussion for this. I blame Lexa. Just blame Lexa, it works.
I hate you guys!
There's definitely room and plenty more we can cover. We haven't covered everything. So if you've got any ideas, like we mentioned before, we have a document that you can use as an outline to help contribute to the show, questions, ideas, thoughts, and send it back to us via Twitter, email, Discord, and we will use that the next time we do the show to set up our core bunch of questions, ideas and thoughts and run with it. So if you're definitely interested in doing that, check out our website for the information, check out the official forums for the information, check out our Discord server for that information. It's all available there. Disclaimer again, quickly, we are not devs. We are not paid by, or technically me and Josh aren't devs. Lex is kind of like a mini dev, but not for VR.
I'm a dev, but not for VR.
We're not paid by them. They haven't. We're not associated with them in any kind of way. We're just supporters of the game, wanting to help them out, promote their game, and get people interested, and talk about what's going on and build a good community. Thank you, Lex. We're here as well to entertain people while we all wait so anxiously for testing to start, and we can finally get to see the game for ourselves. It's purely speculation on Thursdays, what we do, with a lot of thought behind it. We also mention the stuff that it is official, but we let people know when it is. We're just throwing out ideas to try and help the community open up their minds and come up with cool stuff to put onto the forums and have the next great breakthrough, and to help VR as well, because programmers are humans as well, and they do have blockages and tunnel vision, and with stuff that we're doing here, it might give them that little knack. They watch the show maybe, and then boom, they hear something we're talking about or what you guys brought up in the community in general, and there you go, they got exactly the idea that they wanted. So yeah, that's a disclaimer. And final thoughts, guys. And before you do that, hold that thought, because I want to bring up the calendar for next show. I'm evil. So, the next show, we'll be talking about guild alliances. Now, not maybe a lot of you know this, but I think it was back in October, Jopper did an interview for MMORPG.com, and he mentioned the word guild alliances and guild wars, this mechanic being a part of Pantheon. So we'll be talking about the Guild Alliance system and what we would definitely like to see and the possibilities available for guilds and outsiders to interact with the guilds in alliances and so forth. That will be on June 8th, and then after that we have the open AMA, Ask Us Anything, Ask Me Anything, be it related to Pantheon, be it related to the show, be it related to us personally, be it related to the Voice of Terminus as a collective. So if you've got anybody out there that's kind of sitting on the fence or wants to know more or wants to get, involved in Pantheon and stuff, shoot them our way for that show, because we're there to answer everybody's questions and give you the information that we have or what we know about back to you and what we can answer. So those are the upcoming 2 shows. And so final thoughts. We'll start with you, Josh, because you're smiling so nicely.
I think that it's in an ideal place to actually get the UI right from the beginning. You find a lot of these MMOs, or older MMOs, that seem to tag on the UIs as they go on. And that's the beauty of Pantheon being where it is that it's got decades of basically past experience to actually lean on to get the stuff right. So I do hope that they do. Minimalist for me is the way to go, and so long as it's it can be changed on a regular basis, I'm all for it. I'll be very happy.
Well, for me, the UI is your primary means of interaction with your user. It's basically the platform upon which they stand to interact with your world. So it means a great deal. Now, UIs should be like people. They're not always the same. They can be similar, but they're not always the same. The key, I think, for Pantheon is going to be to kind of incorporate more of the customizations than maybe they might have been planning. But in the end, I think it'll do them good. And really sit down and focus on quality of life. What's going to make things easier, but not easy? Like a lot of the admin stuff for the guilds that we were talking about. That's make things easier for the administration of a large guild or even a small guild, but it doesn't make the game easy. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure a lot of the people at VR might watch this and be like, oh God, everything people are expecting now. But we can find a nice middle ground. And I'm sorry we made your life a little miserable on this one.
Nicely said. But in all fairness, it's 2017. Games have evolved, or especially MMOs have evolved so far. And most of these features are quality of life features, and they should be there. If you can't get it right at the get-go, at least inform your people that these are things that you are definitely planning on doing, because the UI might not seem that important, but it is. It's a very important element of the game. If I don't have certain features, I just kind of go, is this like 1998 or something? Was it that hard to add a little button where I click on a checkbox or this and that? And a lot of people get insanely mad about stuff like that. So the basic cool stuff, quality of life stuff should be a focus when approaching the UI. And if you